Lisa's heart pounds as a pride of ruthless lions closes in, their roars tearing through the twilight. Her injured cub trembles in her arms. They're outnumbered, outmatched, and seconds from being lost forever. Then, an earth-shaking roar stops the hunters cold. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, golden shadows across the African savanna, where Lisa and Max found themselves suspended in a fragile moment between life and death. Every blade of dry grass whispered with the breeze, and the distant calls of birds masked the tension thickening the air. Lisa's eyes, sharp and unwavering, scanned the tall grasses that swayed like silent sentinels around them. Her muscles, coiled and ready, betrayed the calm exterior she forced herself to maintain for Max's sake. Max, only a few months old, was blissfully unaware of the lurking peril. His soft, spotted fur shimmered faintly in the afternoon light as he tumbled clumsily, learning the first lessons of agility that would one day define him. But today, that innocence was a fragile shield against the ruthless laws of the wild. Lisa's world shrank to the trembling heartbeat of her cub. Every instinct screamed to shield him, to keep him out of reach from the danger that prowled unseen. From the shadows, Carter moved with an eerie patience that betrayed the desperation gnawing at his ribs. Hyenas were scavengers by nature, but hunger had twisted Carter into a shadow of cunning lethal enough to stalk the swift and deadly cheetah mother and her cub. His dark eyes flickered with a savage hunger as he closed the distance, the ground muffling his steps beneath the dry grass. He wasn't just hunting food. He was chasing survival, driven by a brutal necessity that eroded his fear. Lisa's senses flared, the faintest rustle, a subtle shift in the wind's breath, the ghost of a scent, all aligned into a warning signal her body couldn't ignore. The moment crystallized into sharp focus. Time slowed as her mind detached from panic and honed in on the single point of threat. Her heart hammered like a war drum, fierce and unrelenting, but it was tempered by an iron will forged in the crucible of motherhood. Nothing, no hunger, no threat, could take Max from her. In a flash of raw power and precision, Lisa launched herself forward. Her claws scraped the earth as she closed the distance to Carter with breathtaking speed. The predator's momentary surprise was her only advantage. Claws met flesh, teeth snapped, and the air was torn by the violent chorus of the fight. The clash was merciless but quick. Survival depended on swiftness, not endurance. Carter's desperation lent him ferocity, but Lisa's maternal fury was an untouchable force, fueled by the love that burned in every fiber of her being. Each movement was a blur, a dance of survival and protection, where hesitation meant death. Lisa's mind was a whirlwind of instinct and determination, understanding with brutal clarity that her victory wasn't just for herself, but for Max's future. Carter, caught in the storm of her wrath, snarled and snapped, but his energy flagged under the relentless pressure. His gambit had failed. The prize was not his to claim. With a final, savage swipe, Lisa sent Carter stumbling back into the thicket, his breath ragged, his eyes wild with frustrated hunger and grudging respect. The hyena retreated, melting into the shadows like a dark stain on the landscape. For a heartbeat, silence reclaimed the savanna. The tension, taut and electric, loosened its grip, but the danger had not disappeared, only receded. Lisa's chest heaved as she turned to Max, who was trembling, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. Her voice, low and soothing, wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Every muscle in her body ached from the confrontation, but the relief was profound and immediate. She had won this battle, and for now, Max was safe. Yet beneath that relief, an unspoken dread settled. This narrow escape was only the first of many challenges in a world where survival was never guaranteed. As the golden light faded toward dusk, Lisa's fierce gaze softened, but the fire within her remained. Max was her future, fragile yet unbreakable, and she would fight to the last breath to protect him from the merciless shadows of the savannah. The moment that followed was quiet, but the story of their survival was just beginning. The fading warmth of the sun did little to ease the chill crawling up Lisa's spine. The savannah, which moments before had seemed a brief sanctuary after the harrowing skirmish with Carter, now felt ominously hollow. Beneath the surface calm, a low rhythmic vibration began to pulse through the ground, a subtle tremor, barely perceptible yet relentless. It was the sound of power and inevitability, the unmistakable herald of something far deadlier than a hungry hyena. Lisa's ears twitched, nostrils flaring as the scent hit her. A complex mixture of musk, sweat, and raw dominance that invaded the air and clamped around her like a tightening noose. The pride was near, a force that carried the weight of centuries in the unforgiving hierarchy of the savannah. The dominant male, Brandon, was approaching, his very presence a storm that had uprooted the balance of this fragile patch of wilderness. Brandon was no mere lion. His mane, thick and dark, rippled like a shadow against the tall grasses, a living symbol of brutal authority. Every muscle beneath his tawny coat rippled with predatory grace. His eyes, cold and calculating, burned with ruthless intent. His motivation was unyielding and simple. Any rival predator was an enemy to be crushed, an obstacle to his unchallenged reign over this territory. The pride that flanked him, a cadre of hardened lionesses and younger males, moved with practiced precision, a seamless unit forged in countless battles and bound by the iron law of survival. Lisa's heart slammed violently against her ribs. The brief respite she had just seized was evaporating like mist in the noonday sun. Her mind scrambled to find an escape, a path through the looming threat. But the reality was harsh and unforgiving. The lions were many, and Lisa, with her single cub, was vulnerable beyond measure. Max, who had barely recovered from the hyena attack, now faltered under the weight of his injuries. His tiny legs wobbled unsteadily, the pain sharp and unrelenting in each step. The cub's usual lively spirit was dimmed, replaced by a fragile hesitance that tore at Lisa's very soul. Her maternal instincts screamed to protect, to carry him to safety, but even that seemed a near impossibility. The terrain was open, the lions closing the distance with terrifying speed, their roars shattering the silence with primal authority. The air thickened with menace as Brandon's deep, guttural roar rolled across the plains, a sound designed not only to communicate power, but to crush hope. It resonated with the weight of ancient dominion, a brutal declaration of intent. The lionesses mirrored his ferocity, their sharp eyes glinting with predatory focus. This was not a hunt born of hunger. It was a calculated strike, a purge to rid the land of competition. Desperation seized Lisa with a cold grip. She crouched low, muscles taut, calculating her limited options, every second stretching into an eternity. The flickering hope that had sparked moments ago, that had flared so briefly in the aftermath of Carter's retreat, now threatened to snuff out completely. The stark reality loomed like a towering storm cloud. Lisa and Max were outnumbered, outmatched, and exposed. Her breathing became ragged as she made the impossible choice. She couldn't afford to waste time hesitating. Gathering every ounce of strength and will, Lisa began to move, the instinct to flee battling with the crushing burden of Max's injury. Her pace was frantic but controlled, a desperate dash toward any semblance of cover that might offer a slim chance at survival. Yet, with each labored step Max took, the distance between them and the advancing pride shrank mercilessly. The lions pressed forward, their roars weaving a tapestry of intimidation and power, a symphony of death in motion. Their heavy paws thudded against the earth, shaking the ground beneath Lisa's feet. She dared not look back. Every glance would be a reminder of their inevitable peril. The weight of despair settled deep into her bones, a sensation more suffocating than the scorching sun above. In this brutal calculus of nature, Lisa knew the savannah was unforgiving, and mercy was a foreign concept, Her resolve, once steely and unyielding, now trembled under the overwhelming force closing in. Yet beneath the crushing despair, a flicker of primal defiance lingered, a stubborn ember refusing to die. Though the odds were grim, Lisa's spirit held fast to one unwavering truth. She would fight with every breath to protect Max, no matter the cost, no matter the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. The air vibrated with tension, thick and suffocating, as the pride of lions closed in like a tide, intent on swallowing every scrap of resistance. Lisa's breath was ragged, each inhale a shallow, urgent gasp as her mind raced through desperate calculations. Max, fragile and trembling in her grasp, was a weight she both cherished and feared, a beacon of hope and vulnerability in a wilderness where mercy was scarce and the margin for error razor thin. The lionesses advanced with the lethal precision of seasoned hunters, their eyes cold with predatory intent, every muscle taut with deadly purpose. The heavy pads of the male lions hammered the earth, a thunderous echo that seemed to shake the very soul of the savannah. Just as the shadows lengthened and the encroaching roar of the pride threatened to drown out all possibility of salvation, an unexpected tremor rippled through the clearing. It was subtle at first, a faint rumbling beneath the earth that prickled Lisa's skin, an unspoken warning in the rhythm of nature itself. Then came a swelling crescendo, the deep, resonant trumpeting of elephants, a sound ancient and commanding, reverberating like a declaration of defiance against the looming darkness. From the fringe of the tall grasses, the massive forms of the herd emerged, moving with an awe-inspiring blend of grace and power that defied their colossal size. At their forefront stood Grace, the matriarch, whose presence radiated authority tempered by an unmistakable compassion. Her eyes, ancient and knowing, had been watching the unfolding struggle with a silent vigilance, weighing the precarious balance of life and death in the clearing. Elephants and lions existed in a tenuous equilibrium, often competitors, sometimes indifferent. But Grace's motivation transcended territorial disputes or hunger. It was rooted in a profound instinct, the protection of the vulnerable, the guardianship of the young and the weak who might otherwise fall prey to the brutal edicts of the wild. With a commanding trumpet that seemed to shake the very heavens, Grace led the herd forward, their colossal bodies like rolling mountains of flesh and bone. The ground trembled beneath their feet, dust rising in thick clouds as they charged with relentless purpose. The lions, caught off guard by the sudden thunderous assault, faltered and scattered. Roars turned to startled yelps and hurried retreats as Grace and her elephants carved a path of destruction and protection through the pride's encircling menace. Lisa's tears blurred the scene, a tumultuous mix of relief, awe, and overwhelming gratitude flooding through her. She clutched Max close, her heart pounding not just with the adrenaline of escape, but with the profound realization of the unexpected sanctuary unfolding before her. The elephants formed a protective corridor, their massive bulk a living fortress against the predatory threat that had seemed inescapable mere moments before. Each step Grace took was measured and deliberate, a testament to her wisdom and unyielding resolve. The herd moved as one, siblings, mothers, daughters, united in a common purpose that transcended the ruthless calculus of survival. Their trumpeting calls echoed across the savannah, a chorus of strength and solidarity that dispelled the shadow of despair, like a sudden downpour cleansing the parched earth. As the dust began to settle and the echoes of the confrontation faded into the twilight, Lisa found herself suspended in a moment of profound clarity. The savannah, with all its cruelty and relentless demands, had also revealed an astonishing truth, that within its merciless cycles there existed flickers of something extraordinary. Unexpected alliances, fierce protection, acts of kindness born not from weakness, but from a strength that defied instinctual boundaries. Grace's intervention was more than a rescue. It was a testament to the complexity of life itself, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of existence, compassion could bloom like a stubborn, radiant flame. Lisa's gaze lingered on the matriarch, whose steady presence now anchored her spiraling emotions. In Grace's eyes, she glimpsed not just a fellow creature, but a guardian who understood the sacred duty of protection. It was an unspoken bond forged in the crucible of survival, a shared reverence for life's fragile continuity. The elephant's charge was a living metaphor for resilience, a powerful surge of hope that transcended fear and shattered the illusion of isolation. Cradling Max against her chest, Lisa inhaled the cool evening air, tasting the bittersweet mingling of relief and newfound possibility. The astonishing moment had carved a new narrative into the wild's harsh tapestry, one where survival was not solely defined by struggle and loss, but also by the profound capacity for unexpected kindness and strength. It was a revelation that would linger long after the echoes of the elephant's trumpets faded into the encroaching night, a beacon of hope shining defiantly against the relentless darkness.